like pretty regularly. Like that's sort of where I have to be the peacekeeper. Where
That's
I'm
like bi-weekly.
Hey guys, why don't everybody? Yeah, that's a weekly occurrence. That's not even that doesn't even register to me as being like a thing that I do anymore. That's like I'm sure if somebody came in and was just like a fly on the wall, like my friend, like my best friend Justin in the whole world. Other than my twin brother, but my best friend Justin, he's like he's a great dude. He's like a marketing guy. I would imagine if he was a fly on the wall for a week, he'd be like, what the fuck, dude? Like, how many times do you have to, he wouldn't even be able to understand the amount of aggression that I have to break up in the studio. And to me, it's sort of just a thing that I do. It doesn't register, anymore. But only one time I had to break up like an actual, there was a fist fight. I broke out. Like, there was these two guys came to fucking blows. You know what I mean? I'm like, and I actually had to break that up. One time. That's not bad. One time in 15 years. I don't think that's too bad,
And that's not bad at all.
No.
So I actually have a lot of questions that we've already done so much. But I'm trying to think what I should ask you next.
I didn't even end up telling you how I got to Barefoot. That was a whole other story that we didn't get to. So that's something we have to save for some other time,
We'll save that for another podcast.
Yeah, exactly. Because that's a whole thing. Yeah.
Exactly. Once you got to LA, everything worked out. I'm sure.
I didn't really go. I'm like, I got to LA, and I don't know. There's probably other stuff we should talk about. That's a whole. I could talk about that for another hour. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So tell me, we all kind of go through phases where, things are sometimes things are rock and roll, everything's groovy, and then every once in a while we get a rut and it's harder to be creative and it's hard to be motivated. Do you do anything specific to stay motivated and completely, stay fresh whenever you get into the studio every day?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I really do. I listen to whatever is doing well on the rock charts. I listen to that on a at least weekly basis, I listen to a lot of music, every day. And I don't mean in the studio. I mean, outside of the studio, I listen to a lot of music. Pretty much at my house, when I'm home, there's something playing in the background. I'm intaking things. When I'm driving, I'm intaking things. I'm very into the process, 24/7. I am very much into that, There was a time when I was, going to sleep listening to, the National or Local Natives, more, chill records, but still so that when I was sleeping, I was still having some auditory experience that I like to think was happening. I kind of got out of that. Now I just listen to wave noises and meditation stuff because I felt like it was kind of stressing me out. I was waking up and not feeling like I was getting good sleep. So I had to stop that. But I do. I mean, I like to intake stuff. I do listen to podcasts, believe it or not. I listen to podcasts a lot. I listen to, Bill Burr is really funny. He's a funny comedian. I like to listen to him. Other than that, on Sundays, I like to cook and watch football when it's football season and kind of take one day to turn off. And I don't think I have a good answer for this because I feel like I don't. I mean, I do. I meditate. Every night I meditate. In the mornings I do some exercise. I have a routine. I'm very regimented as a person where I usually wake up around the same time, regardless of whatever I did the night, however late we worked the night before. I watch the news. I drink some coffee. I have a bagel usually for breakfast. I'm
winning.
I'm very regimented. When I can be, because most of my day is completely unregimented and chaotic, So I take those moments that I get to sort of regiment myself and get myself to the point of zen where I feel like I'm ready to attack whatever I'm going to get into that day,
Yeah, I wish I could get into more of a daily, at least the morning regimen. It's so hard for me because just the way my life is, because I have a son and he wakes up sometimes not the same time every day.
Yeah.
And sometimes I play a gig at night and then, I get back and I'm beat the next morning. So I found that to be a challenge for me to just kind of get regimented. But it seems to be when you're regimented and you have this morning routine, it really sets people up for success.
It does. It really does. And even though my evening routine can't stay on a schedule because of the work that I do, some bands we're going to finish at midnight. Sometimes we finish at 10. Sometimes we finish at 2 o'clock in the morning. I still have a regiment that I do before I go to sleep. So, I get home, I do my meditation, I shower. You know what I mean? I have a thing, even if that happens at different times, I do kind of an A to Z list of things that I do. I mean, I'm very OCD as well, so I think part of it is that, and not even as much as it's a regimen. It's just these are the things I have to do to make myself feel like the day is done. You know what I mean? But nonetheless, it's still a regimentation that I follow in the evening time to, start to wind down from the day, and then the next morning to get ready for the day. So I definitely do have those things, and I think they're very important. I didn't have them for a long time, and I think my work reflected it. I think my work was a little bit more chaotic. I think it was a little bit more piecemealed, and I felt as though that, for me, at a point, was the part of the process I was most unhappy with, which was when we weren't working, my process wasn't good. So I started to try to apply some of the processes that I did in the studio to my personal life. That was a journey that I went down a few years back. Yeah, probably 3-4 years ago.
Nice. I love that. That's great.
Yeah.
Dude, let's talk about writing, because you mentioned that you do songwriting, and you mentioned that you've worked with members of Haim and Queens of the Stone Age. Tell me a little bit about that. How do those writing sessions look like, and what have you done?
Yeah, way different. I would say most of my year is split between producing and mixing, but I probably, every month there'll be a few days of writing sessions that are on my calendar for my management. And I think it's very fun because it is completely opposite of what I'm usually doing, which is picking out certain microphones for certain sounds and getting to the core of this part and maybe doing a vocal 80 times to get the right emotion in verse 1 as opposed to verse 2. When I'm writing, it is just we're in a room and we have a goal where we have a thing we want to write about, and it doesn't need to sound like anything. It just needs to sound what the song is supposed to be. It's more important to get the right melody, the right lyrics. Now, I do take that painstaking process with me in the writing, where every single lyric is going to be mulled over, and every little melody and every arrangement, and that all gets the same amount of detail applied to it, but it's a much different version of it, where at the end of the day, I'm really just worried about getting acoustic or piano down with a vocal melody in the lyrics, I'm also a really big believer in, when I'm doing writing sessions, I don't want production attached to it. I want to focus on the song, because my favorite songs are songs that can be played on an acoustic or a piano or a violin or a electric guitar or with a band or without a band. And so for me, it freaks bands out, especially nowadays. So many bands come to me and they're like, hey, we have this GarageBand demo of a bunch of loops we put together, and we want to start from this. And I load it up. I'm like, yeah, this is putting us in a corner. We haven't even started on a melody yet or anything like that. I don't think that this piano part is the thing yet. Why are we thinking about that? So it kind of freaks bands out when I'm like, we're starting with an acoustic guitar, and this is what we're going to do all day until it's right. And if at the end of the day we have some ideas to throw on to the demo, then we will. But that's the only thing I'm focused on that day, which is refreshing, and it's cool. And I think bands in their own right can find that refreshing, I hope anyway.
Yeah, I love that. I feel like I've kind of taken the DAW into my life as a canvas, and when I don't write songs very often these days, but when I do, I'm definitely using the DAW to kind of inform how I write a song at this point. Yeah. But I do think there's a beauty in just figuring out a way to play an entire song, on a piano or on a guitar. You know what I mean? There's definitely something special about that.
In my genre that I work in the rock genre, it has to have that. I don't think in other genres that's necessary. In hip hop, it's not necessary. Even in some pop, it's not really necessary.
Right.
Or it's definitely not as necessary. In the genre that I'm in, if the song doesn't translate, I promise you, I tell the band, it is not going to be your favorite song on the record if it makes it at all. If there's a reason, and you may not even know the reason, but it just doesn't. If it doesn't translate to an instrument that can be played in the genre that we're in, it won't make it. I've been around that block way too many times. You know what I mean? I know that.
Yeah, and you hinted at this at the very beginning of the interview. You kind of said those basic pop songs, those basic chord progressions, and just how that song works really spoke to you.
Yeah.
And it seems to me you have a vision of music that's just about a real song, just top to bottom, a real, thorough song.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that everyone's always talking about, or at least not everyone, but there's a lot of chatter about when do we get the next Nirvana or Green Day or Ramones or these real rock stars. Do you know what I mean? Not to say we don't have those now. I think that we do. But I tell people, when we get back to making music the way that they made music, you know what I mean? And I'm not saying that doesn't mean using a DAW or tricky production techniques. I just mean those bands are writing songs on a guitar or in a garage, and they were just right. The best bands I work with, that's what we do. You know what I mean? Like, we don't come in with like some Apple loop and we start from there. I'm not saying you can't make a great song that way, mind you. Everyone has their process. I just mean if that Apple loop doesn't eventually translate to this thing on a piano or guitar, it may not be the move, right? You know, I'm a big believer in using technology for our advantage. But at the same time, it still needs to translate. At some point, we need to try it on this thing to make sure we're going on the right path, you know?
Yeah, love it. So speaking of that, do you have anything that you do to help you work faster in the studio?
For productions or writing? Because I do, but they're both different.
It could be for anything.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, whatever. I guess let's talk about production, because that's
okay.
the meat and potatoes of this interview.
Yeah. As you could probably tell by what we've talked about, I'm not exactly worried about working fast. So, you know, I don't really have a vision of like, oh, we need to get this done. I think working smarter would be a way to do it, which is constantly checking in with ourselves, where like at the beginning of you can ask like any band that I work with this, at the beginning of every day, I'm very big on setting intention with the band as to what we're going to have a collective goal in mind to do that day. So even if that is, today's goal is to get the rhythm guitars done. Like, that doesn't seem like a big goal when you say it out loud, but obviously after you spend, 20 hours doing it, you're like, oh, fuck, this is a big goal. But, when everyone in the room knows that day is for this thing, all of a sudden everyone's working towards this common goal. And I don't want to say that's a faster or like, because it's not faster, but it's a smarter way to do it. And it is a streamlined approach rather than setting up and saying, I don't know, what's everyone want to do today? Like, what do you let's fucking come some bass. Let's do some lead guitar. It's like, I actually deliver, usually at the beginning of a record, I deliver a calendar, an iCalendar of every day laid out and what we should be doing those days throughout the next 30 to 45 days. Now, I'm not like a control freak where like, if that's not happening that day, I'm freaked out. I'm just saying like, hey, this is our path to finish this record on time. Now, we can swap things around and things like that, but we're going to need 12 days of vocals. So if we do that, we can do that secondary. We can do it for, I'm up to the band's process, but in the end, we need this time, So for me, it's just about setting intention. So I'll usually sit down with the band in the morning and say, okay, today we're really going to focus on vocals today, guys. Like, we got to get the lead vocal for song A done, and that's our goal. And we can't leave here until we get that, And everyone's like, okay, yeah, fuck it, that's what Mike and Ross are going to be working on today. And it's just a great way I found over the years to get everyone on the same page and get things done in the best time fashion that we can,
Dude, I figured it out, man. You're like the coach, You're like the band coach.
Yeah. It's a band. Every producer should really be that, I think to some extent.
Yeah.
Anyway, they need to be. There should be the coach for sure. I think that's actually a good. I've never really heard that before, but I like that a lot though. Yeah, I like that.
Well, you're the first guest on the show that I've like, oh, you're really like a coach. You're really like, yeah. I don't know, just clicked for me.
That's cool. I like that. I might start using that.
Yeah, make it your trademark,
Yeah.
Like I'm the rock band coach, I coach rock bands.
Yeah, put it on my Instagram. Record producer, rock and roll band coach. Yeah.
Feel free.
Yeah.
So talking about all the work, let's kind of like sum it down, I guess, a little bit. So I have this new segment on the show. Do you have a good name for it? Because I'm still looking for a good name. It's something like, the deep dive or honing in, or I don't know. I don't have a good name for this. If you have a good name, you could also let me know off air. That's also cool. Where we kind of break down an archetypical track that you work on, and we kind of talk about what went into it, what you were involved in, and and then people get a better idea of what you're about just by hearing it on the podcast. So I'm just going to pull up Size of My Heart by Sundress and go listen to it in real time.
Great.
And we'll talk about it. Here it is.